Hey guys, appreciate you tuning in for another tutorial. This is Michael with Strange Shapes, and today we're getting a little funky with it. We're going to be making this trippy disco effect. It's pretty interesting. It looks like there's a lot going on, but it's really just a few key effects. So let's make it happen. Have some fun, make something weird. All right, guys, what are we gonna do first? I bet you can't guess. We are gonna come to a new composition. We're gonna label this one text. I'm gonna keep the resolution at 4K, which is 3840 by 2160, but it doesn't matter too much if you want to lower that resolution to 1440p or full HD at 1080. We're going to make that frame rate 30 FPS, and the duration of the comp is going to be 10 seconds long, and then we're going to hit OK. We're going to come down here to this panel, right click in there, go to New, Solid. I'm going to label it BG. It can be whatever color you want, depending on kind of how crazy you want this comp to be, but I'm going to keep mine black. Hit OK. And then once you've got that in there, come up here to the text tool, click that sucker, go ahead and click anywhere else in the frame, and type out what you want. I'm gonna do disco insanity. And then I'm gonna come back up here to the selection tool, go to align, and get that nice in the middle like that. If you don't see the align tab, as always, you can come up here to window, make sure it's checked off just right there. Now what we want to do with this is scale it pretty high up, but not super high, because some of the effects we're using later will cause that to go off the screen if we go too far. So we want it centered in the frame. Yeah, nice, but we don't want the edges to be too close to the actual edge of the comp. So something like this is probably pretty good. Now with this font, for some reason, it's like adding a space. So I'm just going to put a space at the beginning so that it looks more centered. Make sure that's aligned, and we're good to go. From here, we can come over here to the new composition button, hit that guy, make a new one. I'm going to call this BG plus text effects because I like to rhyme. Everything else is okay. You can hit enter and then go ahead and come down here to this panel again, right click, go to new, go to solid. You're on a roll. I'm so proud. We're going to call this one BG effects, hit enter. And then with that solid selected, we're going to come to effects and presets, come over here to type, and I'm going to put in fractal because we want fractal noise. Go ahead and double click that if your layer is selected. If not, you can just drag that down on top. Either method works. All right, and now let's change some of these parameters. So fractal type, we're going to make that guy dynamic. The noise type can stay soft linear. We're going to bump this contrast way up to 1300, and we're going to bump the brightness way down to 380, just so that you get this kind of cool particle effect, but not a whole lot of white. And lastly, you're going to come over here to the evolution parameter. I'm going to alt click that to bring up the expressions, and I'm just going to type in time asterisk 500 and then click out. And what that'll do is create a little bit of movement. Yeah, sweet. And the last thing we want to do with that layer is I'm going to move that timeline back to the beginning just to be safe, but I'm going to click that layer, come back to effects and presets, type in shift because I want shift channels. I love this effect. I think I've used it in almost all my videos because I love it so much. Once shift channels is on there, we're gonna turn off green, so make green go to full off, and blue, same thing, full off, but we're gonna keep red where it is. And then we're gonna select that BG effects solid again. I'm gonna duplicate it 2 times, so I'm gonna hit Control D and Control D because we want 3 of these layers. And if you're on Mac, you can use Command instead of Control there, Command D. All right, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna keep this bottom layer as is, but on this middle layer, we're gonna come over here to the shift channels effect. We're gonna turn off red, and for green, we're gonna turn it to green. And then top layer, we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna turn off red. Whoops, not on. What am I doing? Turn off, and then go to blue, turn on blue. So other colors are off, Blue is on. So now it's going to look like this. You're only going to see the blue, but we're going to fix that. So what we're going to do is come down here to these solids. I'm going to select them all just by clicking and dragging. I'm going to go to mode. If you don't see mode, there's a button down here, toggle switches / modes. You're going to hit that. It's probably going to look like that if you don't see mode. You're just going to hit it till you see it. So once you do see mode, come over here, and we're just going to make each one of these screen. But wait, there's more. Then what we're going to do is just select each layer and shift it just a tiny bit. So I'm just going to like hit my arrow key once to the right, once down, maybe one more time. So 2 over to the right, 2 down on the arrow key. I'm going to keep the middle effect as is, and then on the top, I'm going to do the opposite. So 2 arrows to the left, 2 above, just so that you get that kind of slight glitchy effect that you see right there. Cool. From here, we're going to come up here to the project panel. We're going to drag in that text comp that we created. It's going to look like this, but we're also going to change the blending mode on here to screen, and then boom, it will fuse with the background. All right, we are on track, you guys. So with the text layer selected, and make sure your timeline is at the beginning, we're going to come back to effects and presets, and we are going to get one of the effects that creates the crux of this entire effect. Did what I just said make sense? I don't know, but I'm going to keep going. So we're going to type in CC scale wipe because we want the CC scale wipe. Double click that to apply, and then let's get funky. I'm going to come over here to the parameters. I'm going to up that stretch to 100. It's going to look real weird right now. Kind of cool actually, but don't worry, we're going to fix this effect. Again, with your timeline at the beginning, we're going to hit that stopwatch for the center parameter, just like that. But I'm going to change this X value to 3475. And see what that does? You can see that if I move it along that axis, it'll affect more and more of that layer. But I don't want it to affect the layer just yet, so I'm going to make that 3475. Now, if you did a different resolution, you might have to adjust that a little bit more, or it might have to be in a different spot. But essentially, all that you want is for that anchor point to be all the way on the right so that you don't actually see the stretch effect yet. Once we've got that initial value down, I'm going to move the timeline all the way to about 3.5 seconds. So that should be 3 seconds and about 15 frames. You can zoom in on the timeline if you need to, but yeah, 3.5, right at 15. And then I'm going to change this X value to 315. What a coincidence. Now, depending on how large you scale your type, you might still see some of this. So if you do see it, all that you have to do is just move it over a little more to the left until you don't see that. And now, essentially what we did was we just made sure that that anchor point moves across the composition. If you go back, you can see it affecting it. Pretty cool, you guys. I'm gonna select that layer and hit the U key so that I can see the keyframes, makes that a little easier. And then the last thing I'm gonna do for this effect is just go to direction and change it to -90. And now the angle should be gone, and it should be going off the left side of the screen. Hell yeah. All right, guys, once that keyframe is there, we're gonna move the timeline all the way up to about 5 seconds. And then what I'm gonna do is hold down Alt and hit the right bracket to cut off that timeline right there. Now, alternately, you could just click and drag it from the right side. It works just as well, but Alt right bracket is the shortcut. Might be a little faster for you. Once you've killed that, we're going to duplicate this text layer. So just Control or Command if you're on Mac, plus D, Control D. And then just for the sake of organization, we're going to rename that top layer. So I'm just going to label it Text 2. I'm going to hit the U key on my keyboard to bring up those keyframes. And then I'm going to actually kill the keyframes on here. So all I have to do that is just click this stopwatch. And now it has no keyframes. But we're going to change that too. So then what we're going to do is just click and drag this layer in the timeline right to the edge of this one. So basically all this is doing is making sure that this one ends right as this one begins. So there's no crazy overlap. If you zoom in, you can see that happen. So for a second, they're both in the frame at the same time. You actually don't want that, so we're just going to kill that by one frame, and I just did that by dragging it to the left. Now you don't see that overlap, so now it's seamless. Perfect. Once that's in a good spot, we're just going to move that timeline to the very beginning of this second layer, this text 2 layer, and then we're going to update these parameters. So we're going to keep the stretch at 100. We're going to click that stopwatch for center again, and I'm going to change that to 3500. And then from here, I'm going to move the timeline all the way to 7.5 seconds. So just like that. And again, I'm going to change that X value to 315. This one looks okay, so we're just going to keep it at 315. And then I'm going to move the timeline all the way to the end of the comp, all the way to the edge. I'm just going to select this keyframe, the one at the very beginning of the second layer, copy it, and paste it. So Control C, Control V. And then lastly, before I forget, you're going to change this direction from -90 to +90. Awesome. And now your effect should look something like this. Pretty sick, you guys. So it starts from the left, stays on screen for a little bit, goes to the right as it wipes away, but then at the end we have it right back on. Cool. This extra little right on is important for later because we want some more color on the screen. Anyway, you'll see in a little bit. All right, guys, we are getting there. So the next thing we're going to do is just come to this panel again. We're going to right click in it, go to new, and we're going to add an adjustment layer. I'm just going to label this one chromatic. And once I've done that, I'm going to go to effects and presets. I'm going to type in chromatic because I'm looking for quick chromatic aberration 3. It's a great plugin. It's free. If you don't have it, it's in the link below. I got you. And all that we're going to do on that layer is just change this position parameter from 0.50 to 10. Boom. We're adding a little color, adding a little life. All right, we're getting there. The next thing we're going to do once this whole comp is wrapped up is go here, make a new comp. I'm going to label this one lens effects. Everything else can stay the same, so we're going to hit OK. I'm going to drag in that BG plus text effects. And then I'm going to right click again, go to new, and make another adjustment layer. I'm also going to label this one lens effects. This could probably be its own adjustment layer in the previous comp, but I like to keep things a little bit more organized by their effects. So anyway, we're going to go back to effects and presets and type in All Optics Compensation. I'm going to double click that to apply it to lens effect. And then I'm going to move over here, change that FOV to about 67, and then check that reverse lens distortion option. Gives it a little bit more depth, makes it look like it's coming at you a little bit more. Yeah, pretty cool. With that adjustment layer still selected, we are going to go back to effects and presets and type in CC lens. We're going to double click that to add it. And things are starting to look real weird, you guys. So let's make it look good. We're going to move that timeline back to the beginning. Look, it's a bubble. I'm so dumb. Why do I have friends? And then go to size on that CC lens effect. We're going to click that stopwatch and drag that all the way to the left so that it's at 0. Then I'm going to move that timeline to halfway, so 5 seconds. Move that size all the way up to 500. And from there, I'm just gonna make sure that lens effect is selected, hit the U key again to bring up the keyframes. I'm gonna drag the timeline all the way to the end. I'm gonna copy that first keyframe again, so just select it and hit Control or Command C. And then with the timeline where you want it, which is at the very end, I'm gonna hit Control or Command V to paste it. And then let's easy ease those keyframes, and you can do that just by selecting all of them like that and hitting the F9 key. And now we should see that cool lens distortion effect. Awesome, you guys. It's like we're looking into a snow globe. All right, guys, we're on to the last composition. We're getting so close. Makes me sad. Go to new composition one more time. We're going to label this one main because it's going to be our main. We're going to drag in lens effects. I'm going to move the timeline just so I can see it. Yeah, pretty cool. With that layer selected, I'm going to come back up here to shift channels, double click that guy to add it. Do the same thing. We're going to turn off the other colors, but keep red on. Oops. And then I'm going to duplicate that layer twice and adjust it. So turn off red, turn on green. On the top one, turn off red, turn on blue. Come down here, select them all, change that blending mode to screen. And then what we are going to do different for this one is just stagger these layers by 2 frames. So to do that, I'm going to move the timeline to the very beginning. I'm going to hit the page down key to move forward 1 frame. I'm going to hit that twice, so 2 times, and then I'm just going to drag that middle layer over. Then I'm going to hit page down 2 more times, 1, 2, drag that top layer over, just so that they're staggered a little bit like that. If you don't have the page down key on your keyboard, you can do this just as easily by zooming in on the timeline and just moving up frame by frame. All it is just moving over 1, 2 frames, just like that. And then I'm going to move the start of the work area over just so that it starts after they've all already come into frame. Now what this does is it adds a little more disco to the background. Without these, you can see that there's more light, but I liked all the shiny colors. Just gives a little more color depth too. Awesome, folks, we are just about done. The next thing we're going to do is just come back down to this frame, right click, go to new adjustment layer. I'm going to label this one scatter. I'm going to come over here to effects and presets, and you guessed it. Type in scatter, double click that to apply it, and then come back over here, move that timeline to the very beginning, right about there. We're going to come up here to the scatter amount. I'm going to hit that stopwatch, change it to 500. I'm going to come over here, move the timeline to about 4 seconds. Yeah, it's looking real crazy. Change that down to 0. Move it ahead to 5. I'm going to hit the U key on this layer to see those keyframes again. And I'm just going to hit that little keyframe button to hold it there. Alternatively, you could also just copy and paste this keyframe right there, but we just don't want it to change in between that second so that we can see that title a little bit longer. Once you've got that keyframe right there, I'm going to move the timeline all the way back to the end, change that amount back to 500. And we are basically done, you guys. The very last thing that I did was just right click in this frame one more time. We're going to make another adjustment layer. Label this one hue saturation. Come back to effects and presets. Type in hue saturation. And then you can change it so that your colors fit whatever you want. I think I did somewhere like that when I did mine. 311. And you can even like animate this to change throughout you want. You could have it cycle colors like crazy. Get real disco with it, you guys. But anyway, that's the effect. So I'm going to turn off that hue saturation for now just because we don't really need to see it. But anyway, once everything is said and done, yours should look something like this. Pretty awesome, you guys. It's a crazy effect. It's wild. Don't even ask me how I got here, but I had so much fun making this, and I hope you guys too. But that's it for me, you guys. Signing off for the week. Super appreciate the support. Hope you have a good week, and I will talk to you guys very soon. All right, see ya.